production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, what lies ahead for the Farm Bill after its defeat last week in the U.S. House of Representatives.
In Southern Gardening, Backyard Resort. You'll visit one home that's turned its backyard into a beautiful hideaway.
Good container combinations.
In the markets, cotton threatens to slide into a lower trading range as cattle futures show some strength as June comes to a close. Brian Williams has our analysis.
In the feature segment, farmers often use large amounts of inputs in order to harvest maximum yields. Is there a point where the extra yield doesn't pay for itself? That's being studied by soybean farmers in Iowa.
I don't know a farmer that wants to buy nitrogen that they're going to lose or don't need. But there's also a lot more regulations coming down to restrict how much you can apply. So the more we can collect more and more data, that will also have the impact not only of improving management, but perhaps influencing future policy and regulations on fertilizers.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
The U.S. House of Representatives is assessing what went wrong with last week's defeat of the Farm Bill.
Leighton, as we recorded Farm Week last Thursday, we, along with most others, assumed that the House would pass its version of the Farm Bill later that afternoon. As it turned out, that was not the case. Now there's bona fide concern that the House will do as it did last fall and not pass a Farm Bill for the second year. U.S. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid and U.S. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack, both Democrats, said they oppose another extension of the present Farm Bill. They're calling on the House to solve its problems and pass a new Farm Bill. An earlier extension of the 2008 Farm Bill was approved by the Congress in January. That extension expires September 30th. There's been considerable frustration expressed by Republican congressmen with their own House Speaker John Boehner and Majority Leader Eric Cantor. The passage of a Republican amendment calling for tougher work requirements for food stamp recipients seemed to be the final nail in the coffin of the Farm Bill.
What happened to the expectations that a Farm Bill would pass the U.S. House of Representatives? Well, Market to Market's Mike Pearson reports it was a variety of negatives coming together that doomed the bill.
The yeas are 195, the nays are 234. The bill is not passed.
And with that, the U.S. House of Representatives ended a marathon debate over the Farm Bill, as a $940 billion overhaul of agriculture and food assistance went down in defeat. Sorting through 103 amendments proved to be an arduous task for the chamber, as alterations to the bill included everything from wildfire protection to growing hemp for research and even eliminating the National Sheep Industry Improvement Center. Ultimately, 3 amendments may have killed the bill. One adjustment would have placed tighter caps on government crop insurance subsidies. Another created the Dairy Producer Margin Insurance Program. And the most contentious revision would have cut $20 billion in annual funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as food stamps.
SNAP is effectively targeted at our most vulnerable populations, primarily serving children, seniors, and the disabled and poorest communities, people who cannot work.
The data doesn't support, on behalf of the taxpayer, that we continue to increase funding for SNAP. And in fact, if you follow the red line here, that's unemployment in America. And you see during the recession, unemployment went up, as did SNAP spending, almost exactly at the same ratio. And then when unemployment, as the economy began to recover and unemployment went down, as did poverty went down, SNAP funding continued to go up.
Those who are able-bodied, those who really should be getting up during the day and trying to go find work, do not take government assistance.
I tell my colleague from Texas, you want to find money in this budget? Go to the crop insurance program, which is ripping off billions of dollars from U.S. taxpayers. That's where the money is, not where the program is to feed our kids. Food stamps are good for the economy. They get resources into the hands of families who will spend them right away. And most importantly, they're the right thing to do.
If you qualify on the income and the asset side, you'll stay on the program. If you make too much money to qualify directly for food stamp, those are the folks that we'll be getting at as part of the $20 billion that we'll save in this program.
In the end, opposition proved too much for the primary authors of the bill, Republican Frank Lucas of Oklahoma and Democrat Colin Peterson of Minnesota. Sensing he lacked the votes necessary for passage, Lucas made a final impassioned plea to his colleagues.
Assess the situation, look at the bill, vote with me to move this forward. If you care about the consumers, the producers, the citizens of this country, move this bill forward.
Nevertheless, 62 Republicans joined 172 Democrats in voting against the measure. Some said no because the cuts to SNAP were too severe. Other detractors felt the legislation didn't cut enough federal spending. Following the vote, the House Ag Committee chairman issued this statement. I'm obviously disappointed, but the reforms in H.R. 1947, $40 billion in deficit reduction, elimination of direct payments, and the first reforms to SNAP since 1996 are so important that we must continue to pursue them. We are assessing all of our options, but I have no doubt that we will finish our work in the near future and provide the certainty that our farmers, ranchers, and rural constituents need. Even if the Farm Bill had passed, it would have faced an uncertain future, since it would have needed to be reconciled with the Senate version to avoid a presidential veto.
The concern now is that the House Farm Bill may not get reconsidered due to other bills on the docket in the House, like immigration reform and this year's federal budget.
We can't always go for a vacation when we want. In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman shows us that with some imagination, we can turn our landscapes into backyard resorts.
I really love a garden that's both relaxing and beautiful. Today I'm visiting this resort-like landscape. The pool is framed with this gorgeous bed of annual color. The blues, purple, and silver add to the restfulness of the water. Behind the pool area, turtle and alligator containers are perfect selections. Sweet potato, lysomachia, and bronze-leaf begonia are good planting partners. The blue fescue ornamental grass is an unusual but effective choice for the thriller plant in this turtle planter. This landscape bed is a great example of highlighting color using foliage. The red, pink, and green tricolored ginger glows in the backlight of the morning sun. I love the terracotta frog hiding underneath the white Christmas caladium. Heavy use is made of combination containers, such as this trio featuring the sago palm with the sweet potato flowing from the top and contrasting red verbena and petunia. There are other good container combinations, including this red geranium and ornamental kale, or these combination containers of kale, sweet potato, and petunia. Though the emphasis of the landscape is ornamental, a small herb and vegetable garden is tucked into a corner. The green and red cabbage with flowering cilantro adds a homey character. And I like the use of mint and oregano as fragrant and culinary ground covers. We've only just begun to show you the beauty and variety of this magnificent backyard. This is truly an amazing landscape. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Leighton Gary says if you turn your landscape into a small retreat, it can be a way to escape the stress of daily living. In the feature segment today, farmers are always wanting to maximize yields, but at what cost? There are also concerns that nitrogen use could be curbed in the future to preserve water quality. Time now for the markets with Leighton, and the acreage report was released by the USDA at midday on Friday.
And we also have monthly cattle on feed numbers to go over, plus these stories as well. Better than expected winter wheat yields continue to pressure wheat prices. A North Mississippi lumber mill is scheduled to reopen, and new cold storage numbers are said to be bullish for the beef sector. The wheat sector of row crops has shown its ability to rally even in the middle of harvest this year. However, now prices are being pressured lower by what analyst Mark Gold terms some phenomenal winter wheat yields. He offers this analysis and advice.
The yields could be very, very impressive, particularly east of the Mississippi. Illinois, Ohio, Indiana could have some really big soft yields. Combine that with larger crops, we're looking at a 38% increase in Russia, about a 25% increase in Ukraine. Australia's crop looks to be up around 15 to 20%. So we're going to have plenty of competition. There's going to be a lot of exportable grain out there. So I'm just not sure that we're going to be able to sustain this as we move forward. But if anything, I'd probably want to be long Kansas City and maybe short Chicago in here.
Early in the week, we had what analyst Alan Brugler and others called Turnaround Tuesday in the cotton sector, a rally that interrupted a 6-day losing streak. But as of production time this week, it appears the rally was short-lived as prices have come down. Well ahead of the June 28th acreage report, some analysts had noted that if the new numbers did not remove more acres than the supply-demand report earlier in the month, cotton could likely move to a lower trading range.
If December cotton would close consistently a couple days below 83, I think this thing could get uglier to the downside quick. But anything below 83 would bust out of the range, and it looks ugly technically. I think you get flushed down to 81 area quick. Just cotton's a violent market, a no mercy market, and I think it could get ugly.
Turning now to the forest products market, another shuttered mill in the state is coming back to life. Hankins Lumber Company of Grenada said this week it plans to reopen its facility in Grenada. The mill was closed 15 months ago due to the downturn in the national economy. 120 people will be employed to produce southern yellow pine lumber. The trivia quiz this week is about cotton. Let's take a look at our question. Where was the first American cotton mill located? It was in one of these states: Georgia, Massachusetts, Alabama, or Rhode Island. I'll tell you the answer at the end of the markets.
We're going to pause for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar in the second part of the markets. Leighton Spann talks with Brian Williams about the cattle on feed report. In the feature segment today, a huge study in Iowa of soybean farmers hopes to break new ground on what it takes to produce maximum profits, but not maximum yields.
Each year, many Mississippians are seriously injured or killed when farm tractors overturn. One cause of these accidents is improper hitching. If a tractor is hitched at any point above the drawbar, it can flip over backwards. Never hitch a tractor using the bar between the 3-point hitch upper and lower links or at the top link attachment point. The stationary drawbar is the only safe location for tractor hitching. A message from the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. Mississippi State University is hosting its Warm Season Grass Forage Tour on Saturday, July 13th. The free tour will take place on the South Farm at MSU. The tour will run from 8 to 11 a.m. Warm season legumes, nitrogen fertility, and Bermuda grass and Bahia grass will be featured. Lunch will be served, so please pre-register. MSU will also host its Corn and Soybean Field Day on Thursday, July 18th at Stoneville. Runs from 10 a.m. into the late afternoon. Commercial exhibitors will be on hand until 2:30 p.m. Research plot tours will start at 2:40 p.m. At 10, the On Target Application Academy will introduce some of the latest in sprayer and application technology. We'll also give instruction in the proper techniques to keep herbicides on target and effective. Irrigation technology and tactics will also be highlighted. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this week's Farm Week Snapshot.
We start the livestock section of the markets by discussing the government's latest cattle on feed report. Extension Ag economist Brian Williams provided some analysis of the June numbers as I talked to him on Monday. Brian, some analysts have turned this report modestly bearish. Let's kind of recap the numbers for everyone.
Well, just to run through the numbers, the cattle on feed, the number of cattle on feed, we were down about 3% from a year ago at 10.7 million head. Moving on to the placements, we're down about 2% from a year ago at 2.05 million head. And on the cattle marketed, we're down about 3% from a year ago at just under 2 million head.
Was any aspect of this report really out of line, so to speak, with the pre-report guesses?
Overall, there was really no big surprises. Placements were a bit higher than what the analysts were expecting, but that was offset by lower than expected marketing, so it kind of equaled out.
Where do you see the fat cattle market headed as we approach July 4th here?
Well, hopefully the July 4th holiday will provide a boost to our boxed beef demand, and hopefully, you know, right now the boxed beef is trading for around $2 a pound, so hopefully that will help to boost our fed cattle prices.
All right, and then as we look at the feeder cattle market now, of course we've seen lower corn prices somewhat. Obviously people keeping an eye on that, but what kind of trends are you seeing for feeder cattle?
Well, going back to the cattle on feed report, we saw higher than expected placements in that, and a lot of that had to do with higher feed prices early in the year, and those cattle were going on cheaper feed sources, and now we're seeing heavier cattle being placed on feed with the corn prices coming down, so that's kind of the impact that's having.
Well, let's talk just a moment about cold storage report that came out same day as cattle on feed. What were the key numbers there as far as the beef sector?
Well, the big take-home point is that the numbers are down. We're down 6% from last month and 4% from a year ago.
So would you term that cattle on cold storage report rather bullish then for beef?
Yeah, that's definitely bullish. Seeing some of the meat coming out of storage and going into the stores, that's definitely a bullish report.
Pork supplies are growing ahead of the 4th of July holiday. Week-to-date hog slaughter through Wednesday was estimated to be 20,000 head larger than last week and 15,000 head larger than this same week 1 year ago. DTN analyst Aaron Newsom notes that the key to this market is to be able to maintain demand for the product. So far, the rising supply hasn't seemed to faze the hog sector.
Good demand for the hogs right now. This is kind of what we were sitting back waiting to see if it would happen, and it certainly has played out this spring and heading into the summer. So as long as we can maintain that demand, as long as we've got relatively bullish fundamentals, it looks like we're going to be able to continue to support this hog market.
Before our feature story, let's check out the trivia answer for this week. And the correct choice is D. The first American cotton mill was located not in the South, but in the state of Rhode Island. It began operating in 1790.
Our feature story today is about finding the balance between cash inputs and profits. Farmers want to harvest maximum yields, but to get that extra 2 to 3 bushels may actually cost more than the inputs it takes to do it. One agricultural group in Iowa is studying hundreds of growers in an effort to figure out the keys to increase profitability.
In the last 80 years, there has been a 6-fold increase in U.S. corn yields. The gains are attributed primarily to better hybrids and the advent of chemical fertilizers. Weather, however, remains the key ingredient in agriculture's recipe for success, and in 2012, drought had a decidedly negative impact on the Corn Belt. USDA estimates a lack of precipitation caused last year's corn harvest to be nearly 20% less than the 2011 average of 147.2 bushels per acre. With corn at $6, even a 2 bushel per acre difference on a 300-acre farm can lead to a profit or loss of $3,600. While farmers can't control the weather, new technologies are enabling growers to maximize yields and minimize costs through the strict management of inputs.
If we just assume we know what we're doing in a field, we can go out and very accurately apply the wrong amount of anything anywhere if we didn't know any better.
Tracy Blackmer is the Director of Research for the Iowa Soybean Association, or ISA. Because the ISA's members raise soybeans and corn in rotation, the association funds over 30 research projects on both crops. Its goal is to find ways to increase yields and production efficiency while protecting the environment.
I don't know a farmer that wants to buy nitrogen that they're going to lose or don't need. But there's also a lot more regulations coming down to restrict how much you can apply. So the more we can collect more and more data, that will also have the impact not only of improving management, but perhaps influencing future policy and regulations on fertilizers. It would really help everybody. It'd help the environment, it would help the government spending and efficiency, it would also help the profitability of the grower.
Thanks to yield monitors and GPS tracking, farmers can tell exactly what part of a field is producing well and where there is room for improvement. But those tools alone can't determine if more nitrogen is needed, where less nitrogen is needed, or if nitrogen is even a factor.
It's more of trying to put the dollar of fertilizer in the right place in the field and do a better job. I don't want to put more on than what I need to grow that crop, but I don't want to have a shortfall either.
To find out how he might realize increased yields while reducing input costs, Ken Lund, who farms 2,800 acres in central Iowa, enrolled both a corn and soybean field in the ISA's Nutrient Management Benchmarking Survey in 2011. More than 400 farmers enrolled over 900 fields to have their soil and crops analyzed for essential nutrients and a number of micronutrients. Because the data was shared by farmers across the state, growers could learn not only what was right or wrong in their fields, but also in their neighbors.
Growers aren't necessarily known for being neighborly and their biggest competitors within 50 miles. This is a project that's going the opposite way. This is where growers are working together. They're collecting that data, they're all benefiting from it, we're increasing profitability on it, and I believe that's one of the real competitive edge right now for U.S. Ag.
The first step in the Nutrient Management Benchmarking Survey involved digital aerial imagery, or DAI. Aerial photographs were taken of land enrolled in the survey to identify one non-stress and one target stress area in each field. Growers took soil samples and tissue samples from crops in each area so nutrient levels could be analyzed and compared.
This field's been continuous corn for 6 years now, and I'm interested to see what's going on a little more and is pattern tiled. It has tile every 40 feet in it. I'm concerned with what that's doing to my nutrients. The soybean field was just one of the representative fields of what I've got. It's a normal field. It's very representative of all of mine.
The study allowed farmers to select the fields they wanted enrolled in the program. It also offered growers latitude in selecting program areas under the assumption that nobody knows attractive land as well as the person who farms it.
When I went and took the soil samples and the leaf tissues, I did not go to a spot in the field that was real sandy, where I'd have those kind of issues. I tried to stay in a representative part of the field where the nutrients are going to make a difference.
As part of the program, growers met with other farmers in their area to compare notes, allowing participants to not only gain knowledge about their own farming practices, but to also gain insight as to what was or wasn't working for other farmers in the region. Since the study was statewide, it established a benchmark that will lead to a better understanding of how weather and soil types affect the uptake of macro and micronutrients. And there was the added benefit that it got growers out in the field taking tissue and soil samples, an important step towards better nutrient management.
And we need to take the whole leaf, and we need 15 of them. See,
If every grower did just one trial, in Iowa that would be over 40,000 trials to pick from. Most growers agree they can find at least one thing they can do better. But they're doing what they're doing because they think it's right or they wouldn't be doing it. How do you find that one thing better? So as we're getting down to the point of trying to fine-tune within a few bushels for each management practice, we're finding out a lot of the stuff we thought 20 years ago isn't necessarily true today with better information.
You can watch this story again on cash inputs and profitability on our Farmweek website, farmweek.msucares.com. You can also watch Farmweek stories on YouTube and Facebook. We'll have a link to the Market to Market website where you can see the story and then read the script as well. That's farmweek.msucares.com. And Leighton, there's a little bit of self-protection aspect to this. There's concern about the Gulf of Mexico dead zone and nutrients flowing down the Mississippi River. So if they do have data that shows how much nitrogen is going on farm fields, how much is coming off, then it's going to help set that policy. And without any data, you're kind of setting the policy in the dark. But with data, you're setting the policy, and hopefully that'll be able to benefit farmers because we get the right amount of fertilizer on there. Farmers aren't paying too much, and yet fertilizer is also not going off in runoff water.
And as I termed it, it is fine-tuning in order to achieve this.
And to hopefully make more money. Well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, we'll have 2 feature stories for you.
You'll meet the present Mississippi Outstanding Tree Farmer of the Year, John Arachea of Lafayette County. Arachea's tree farm produces income, recreation, and education. Many children have learned about forestry at his Christmas tree farm.
You'll also take a trip out west where cattlemen in Colorado are facing a 3rd year of drought. If you'd like further information on Farm Week story or you want to suggest a story to us, we need you to get in touch. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube. Our mailing address, Farm Week, Box 9625, Mississippi State, Mississippi 39762. That's Box 9625, Mississippi State, Mississippi 39762. Our telephone number, 662-325-2262. You can also contact us through your county office of the Mississippi State University Extension Service. For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.